edition of the SBK Betting Podcast. We're in the height of summer and I have a big smile on my face because I'm about to sing you the song, Do You Believe in Love After Love? Please don't switch off. I'm doing it for one reason and one reason only. We all believe, don't we, TC and Ross? Ross Bonkers Miller, as he says on his name. I'm not sure if everyone can see it, but last week I was a little bit punchy. I was a little bit on one. I think I was coming off the back of quite a difficult weekend and I was angry and I really wanted to be proved right. And wow, Shaquille, he did me good. The boy did good. So pleased to see him win the July Cup, returning at an SP of 5-2. Which was giving money away, really, wasn't it, in the end? And also City of Troy for TC and I think that was the performance of the season so far. And wow, that 16-1's looking nice. I think I definitely backed him for the guineas, but the Derby I think is exactly what is his route's going to be. So looking forward to seeing how his season materializes. But he was well backed into 4-6 favourite in the end. And then Nobel was 12-1 in the John Smith's Cup. He ran a blind to finish fourth. And also Ross's Nap, Salin Nasser finished a good second at an SP of 11-1. But all in all, a good weekend for the podcast. But Tom, let's chat about City of Troy. We had talked highly about him, about his pedigree, about his performance at the Curragh first time out. But what just stood out to me overall was just his mindset. He clearly is this very straightforward professional horse. He looks to me more of a 3-year-old already than a 2-year-old. And there's a lot to look forward to. And I just, what more can you say?
Yeah, to me, he's by far the most exciting horse we've seen this whole flat season. Now, I know plenty of people will say Paddington or Auguste Rodin. There are others to mention as well, not just Aidan O'Brien's string, but City of Troy looked spectacular in the superlative on Saturday. He earned an RPR of 116 without really being asked for 100% in the race. That's the best RPR in the superlative for the last 10 years, topping the likes of Native Trail, Quarto, who was a top-class 2-year-old, Master of the Seas. It was just a glittering performance for a horse that's not even a sprinter, winning over 7 furlongs. He's only going to improve next year when he tackles 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles. I'm really excited about him, and I'm happy that I've got this Derby anti-post slip going. I should have backed him for the Guineas as well. I didn't, but I think he'll probably win that as well as the Derby next year.
Well, look, I think it's important to always, look at 2-year-olds in a nutshell. Ross, you spend a lot of time focusing on juveniles, and we do sometimes get a little bit carried away. And I know, only a few weeks ago, Azadna was the next coming. And I have to say, over the years, we've seen a lot of 2-year-olds, the likes of Pinatobo never really getting to the heights that we hoped that he would do. He was the best 2-year-old we'd ever seen. Even Little Big Bear this time last year hasn't really worked out. Are we too quick to sometimes get into the camp of, this is a superstar, or do you think this one's a bit different?
I think you're right. I think we are too quick to get into the camp. We're only in July. There's plenty of time yet for another superstar 2-year-old to turn up. But the likelihood is that the superstar 2-year-olds are in Ballydoyle. They're with Charlie Appleby. They're probably going to have been out by now. So I think he is very smart. It was an absolutely breathtaking performance. I mean, he just opened up and powered away. And the camera shot on Racing TV was really good because you saw him try and pull him up, and he went a long way before he could pull him up. So he's definitely going to stay further. If you've got the big prices, there's no knocking the angle you're sat at. He's very short for the Guineas now. We're 9 months? Anything go wrong with a horse in 9 months? Let's hope it doesn't. And then the Derby, looking at his pedigree, I'm not convinced he's going to stay the Derby trip. His dam didn't. His dam didn't stay on mile 4. His half brother was out on his feet at Ascot in his first trial at mile 4, and he sat off the pace on that occasion, and they went strong. I'm not convinced to stay. And Justify, no winners from only 7 efforts. I'll give you that, but no winners from 7 efforts at trips up to 12 between 11 and 12 furlongs this season. So, not for a second saying he won't, but I'm just saying at the price he is now. Is not for me. If TC offered me his slip, I'd happily take it.
You're not
but not at the price he's at. Not at the price he's at now. But he was brilliantly smart and just so effortless and easy. Just looks uncomplicated. But Little Big Bear did look very good last year, and he's clearly not the same horse this year.
Yeah, just quick word on that, because he stopped very quickly. And a lot of people saying Ryan knew that the game was up, so didn't really get him into it. What was your take on it?
Well,
And
my take.
before we and your take on Shaquille, without me overdoing it, just your thoughts on the whole race.
I mean, I got one thing right about that race last week, which is that being drawn on the wing could mean Shaquille didn't get cover and race keen. He did, and it didn't matter. You have to say hats off to Ross Ryan, because I was watching it thinking, oh, this has gone badly wrong. But it was a calculated move. He'd spoken to James Doyle, he'd spoken to Oisin Murphy, and they said just go with him. If he gets beat, that's a very lonely place to be for Ross Ryan, when everyone before you was one on the horse, you get your chance and you don't. Armchair jockeys just say it was you're not good enough. So I thought hats off to him. The winner was monstrous. Little Big Bear was never winning it. I mean, I was absolutely staggering. I mean, Aidan O'Brien is someone I seek out comments and try and keep a little note of what he's saying. But I saw this week he said that Ryan was yet to fully wind him up. Well, he can only have been one of those cars I used to have as a kid where you have to go backwards to wind it up in order to go forwards, because he wasn't going forwards in the bit I saw. He was going backwards. He went backwards into a gap to get hampered. He wasn't running forwards into a gap to get hampered. So I thought that was a wild piece. And it's probably largely due to the fact they're trying to make a stallion. But the best horse won, Little Big Bear. I think he's, one you got to have on your cold list now, unfortunately. And it pains me to say that, because I thought he's a brilliant 2-year-old.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and that's why it links nicely with this sort of how we can overdo, or just the way we talk about 2-year-olds and horses, and that, and it's very important, that 2 to 3 sort of passing point. Tom, I know you've always been a massive fan of Ross Ryan. That was definitely his best stage yet, and I think Ross is so right. It's his mind, it's his intelligence to actually say, don't worry, I'm not worried about where I'm drawn. I'm not worried about how I react to the situation I'm in, and just go for it. Everyone, I stood with Lydia Hislop, Nick Luck, everyone was like, he's lost control of the horse, but he had a little bit, but it hadn't really mattered. I just thought hats off to him. I thought that was a Group 1 winning. Not just, sometimes you can ride horses and they just take you there in Group 1s, and you just have to sit on the horse. I think that ride was very, very much Group 1 deserved, because of how he acted within the race.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal rider and has been for the last 2 or 3 years. I've thought he was probably the best in the UK before Ryan then reasserted himself. Obviously, Ryan's riding in Ireland most of the time, but he's quite clearly number one at the moment. I genuinely think Rosser, Ryan and Oisin Murphy are tied for second in terms of raw ability, and Oisin's obviously had plenty more opportunities in Group 1s over the last however many years compared to Rosser. It was great to see Rosser get his first Group 1 winner on the board, and I'm sure it's going to be the first of many.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see now who keeps the ride on Shaquille, the most wanted job in the country at this stage. Is it James? Is it Oisin? Is it Rosser? Right, look, let's chat about the weekend's racing at hand, because we've got plenty of competitive racing. We've got Group 1 action over in Ireland with the Irish Oaks. Now, 8 runners line up, and it's pretty much an Aidan O'Brien fest, with his son Joseph in there and a couple of others. It's not a race to get very much carried away with, and we're probably just pleased that we've got one English representative, but really she's got to reverse the form, that is Blue Stocking, with the Royal Ascot winner Warm Heart, and then you've got the Irish, you've got the Oaks runner-up Save the Last Dance in there. Overall look to this, Ross, not massively taking, or is it more competitive than I'm giving it credit?
No, I think it's probably one that I'll catch up with Saturday evening, I'm afraid. It just looks like if Save the Last Dance. I mean, she was disappointing at Epsom, but then when you watch it back, she showed real guts, because everything was wrong for her. She didn't look to handle the track. The ground was clearly too quick, which I still can't quite fathom out on her pedigree. And yet she still was there pitching and gave it her all. There's plenty of rain knocking around. The ground should be softer. The course should be more conventional, should suit her. If she gets back to anywhere near the form, I don't think we'll get back to the Chester form, but anywhere near the form of that Chester win, she'll win this and she'll win this comfortably, but she's priced accordingly. It's a race you've got to have a selection in, so she is a selection. It's not a race I'll have a bet in, just because there is the chance that Chester was the anomaly and Epsom is her running. I don't think that's the case, but I'm not confident enough to part with my hard-earned at that sort of price. I think Blue Stocking has got a chance of reversing the form with the runner-up from Ascot, because I don't think Blue Stocking had the clearest passage through, but I think Warm Heart is still better than her. It's an Aidan 1-2. At the moment, we don't know the jockey bookings. I'd be staggered if Ryan's not on Save the Last Dance. But if he wasn't, that's something you'd have to take note of. But I think it's between Aidan's 2 and it's Save the Last Dance for me. But it's not a race to get excited about, unfortunately, which the Irish Oaks is starting to become that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame. Like we've seen Snowfall, Enable, some brilliant fillies during the Irish Oaks double, but we've got no Soul Sister, we've got the next best. But I think, Tom, that Soul Sister form is the best piece of form on offer, really, and Soul Sister's proved herself against the boys. Ran a blinder, didn't she, in France? And look, you've got the Warm Heart form, essentially, and you've got 3 or 4 horses sort of reopposing. One horse, Azar, is probably the one that's a little bit, could be anything, being second to Ross Carberry's no mean feat.
Yeah, Azar's actually a very interesting runner in the race. But at the same time, I remember backing this horse first time out this year at a very short price, hoping just to coin a little bit extra on the day. And she got stuffed. Sorry. So I'm kind of on the cold list with her. I'm just going to emulate virtually everything that Ross said, because that's kind of how I saw the race. Very limited interest in terms of punting, but I think Save the Last Dance is the horse to beat. Her Chester performance is the standout in here, and I just don't think Epsom really suited her that much, as well as the fast ground. Softer ground will definitely suit her here, and surely she's better than Warm Heart. Yet again, though, Warm Heart should be second in this race, because there's not really much else that we can talk about. Blue Stocking was stuffed. Lumiere Rock, I don't think has any chance of reversing the form of Warm Heart. So it's going to be a pretty boring Aidan O'Brien 1-2. Hopefully Save the Last Dance goes back to that Chester form, and then we can start thinking about how good this filly is again.
Yeah, I totally agree. We did really, really love her before the Oaks. She was, I think, we all put her up, and look, now she's got her soft ground. There should be no excuses for her. So Save the Last Dance for all 3 of us in the Irish Oaks. We'll move on quickly and swiftly to the Super Sprint at Newbury, because this is a better punting race and is actually turned into a very good race in terms of quality. It's always interesting because horses are allotted weights based on their sales price. So you have horses with a bigger weight than more than their rating, essentially. The likes of Instant Recall, for example, is a rate of 75, but has got a weight of 9.3 because of his sale price, which would be more than others who are possibly rated a lot higher than him. So that is worth noting, and that can sometimes shape the race a little bit differently. It's always been a Richard Hannon special. It's been a race that he's targeted throughout the course of the season. Rod Millman as well. But we've got this year, as mentioned, a lot of previous Royal Ascot runners and Relief Rally, Bobsleigh and Juniper Berries, who sort of dominate this market, ran brilliant races. Ross, I'll come to you because you're the one that keeps a real good tabs on these 2-year-olds. Is there a horse that you took from Royal Ascot that you think could run a good race in here, or is there something else?
No, it's Royal Ascot form and Salisbury form for me, Jess. I mean, I think you're right. Your first port of call when looking at these races has got to be Richard Hannon and Rod Millman. They do really, really well. It's the race where you just know that all the bloodstock agents have got their tweets saved in the drafts. They only paid this for X Colt or filly. But I just can't get away from the favourite. And I tried really hard because I wanted to take her on, but I just don't see who you take her on with, to be honest. I think she's arguably unlucky not to come here unbeaten. She beat Juniper Berries at Salisbury just over a length. She was giving Juniper Berries £2 on that occasion, so she's £5 better off for that run, and she then extended that distance off level weights in the Queen Mary to 5 lengths. The only hole you can find in her is that Salisbury and Ascot are stiffer tracks than Newbury, and her last furlong is always her best. Juniper Berries was my angle I was trying to create, but Eve Johnson-Houghton is just in the doldrums at the moment. Happens to every trainer. it'll come right again. But just at the moment, you couldn't be backing hers, I don't think, with any real faith. So it's Juniper Berries was the danger, but just on official ratings, Relief Rally is just too well in. I think the ground will be on the soft side of good. They will go fast, and I'm hoping that will just draw out her stamina for this 5 furlongs, because I think she'll be even better over 6. She's a real smart filly. She's not overly big. I did see Connection saying, "Oh, she's got a lot of weight," but actually she's carrying less weight than she has in her last 2 runs. So for me, that's not an issue. I think she's going to take all the beating.
She's got a lovely list of entries, hasn't she, including the Nunthorpe, where she's around about 10-1. I think she was a touch unlucky actually at Royal Ascot as well. She just got checked just slightly, and it was only a nose between her and the winning filly, Crimson Advocate. So
I remember it well.
Yeah, you just got to think that if what could have been if she hadn't had that check. It was such fine margins. She's a really likeable filly, isn't she? Relief Rally. I found it very difficult to oppose her. It's just the prices. Tom, what do you think about the Royal Ascot form coming into it? Do you think it's well worth noting, or is there something outside of that?
Yeah, I think she's got the best form in the book. And again, I'm just going to emulate both of what you just said there. She's the horse to beat. She's a relatively short price. Everyone on Twitter is going to be saying, "Gosh, she's so short in such a big field, 7-4. How can I take that?" However, people's conception about short prices is wrong. It's in terms of how much percentage of a chance the horse has of winning, rather than there's 20 runners in the race, so you shouldn't be backing a 7-4 favourite. Relief Rally deserves to be 7-4 on form. She's not short. She's just, there are better punting opportunities, if you like, each way players. You can get bigger return for your money. So I think Relief Rally deserves to be at the top of the market. She's the horse to beat, but I'm going to look for an each way alternative, and that horse is going to be Beanham. Now, I spoke to James Millman earlier in the season after she won at Goodwood in a really impressive manner on her second start. And James said via text, he went, "We're going to work back from the Super Sprint. We're probably going to go to the Marygate next time and then Super Sprint." So I kept a close eye on this filly. They went to the Marygate. She had no cover whatsoever at York. She actually travelled through the race really well, but she was also on the wrong part of the track. And maybe, people will overlook her due to her form figures and how far she was beaten in that race. But I thought she actually ran pretty respectably, considering it was also the fastest ground she tackled throughout her career. Her previous 2 efforts were on good to soft. Now she's going to be returning to slower ground on Saturday, presumably, if the likely drizzle comes on Saturday morning. That will definitely suit her. And although if you're looking at official ratings, she's got loads to find to even get anywhere near Relief Rally, Juniper Berries, etc., I think she's going to improve. And we've already discussed how well the Millmans do in this race. They trained Wolverhampton to finish second at 80-1 last year. Betty's Hope won the race back in 2019. So I'm hopeful that Beanham can hit the frame. And one other thing I just want to touch on for this race, the draw. If you look through the last 10 years, no horse drawn lower than 10 has won this race. They generally come middle to stand side, the protagonists. Yes, you can, win from low and you can be up there in the frame. But if you look at the recent renewals, all the horses towards the stand side have at least a slight advantage. So I want to be drawn high, and that takes away from the likes of Juniper Berries in 4, Lagarida in 2. They're in the top 5 in the market. I'd bypass those and look for the high drawn runners instead.
Okay, interesting. It is definitely Beanham. I think you're going to get a good price based on that run from last time. I think they had plenty of excuses, and they've given her a lot of time as well. No Royal Ascot, no hard race there, but also and they've got services of Oisin Murphy's back after his suspension, so that's always a positive as well, as you mentioned earlier, riding so well, and will have a real fire in his belly to get back into the rhythm of things after essentially missing his ride on Shaquille last week and a couple of others, I'd imagine. One quick one before I go my section. Bobsleigh hasn't been mentioned. Now that Coventry form is red hot. Where winners coming out of there left, right and centre. Is it just an Eve Johnson-Houghton thing, Ross, for you?
And the drop back in trip, Jess. I just wondered for him whether he was better over the 6 than he was over the 5. And then you throw in the Eve Johnson-Houghton angle. And yeah, for me, it's just enough to steer me away from him.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that Eve Johnson-Houghton has a couple of winners between now and Saturday. That'd be helpful because I do like Juniper Berries. I remember having a long conversation with Charlie Bishop about her. Absolutely loves this filly. Can't do the weight and I think has to sort of do Bobsleigh, get on Bobsleigh based on sort of the form anyway. But she gets a £7 pull with Relief Rally this time around. She was only beaten just under 4 lengths by her at Royal Ascot. Yes, obviously Ross sees it from that different angle. I see it from the other angle, that she probably get closer to her based on the weight advantage that she has this time. She isn't drawn great, as TC said, but she'll be a slightly better price than Relief Rally, so it's a price thing for me. Although we've got different ways of interpreting all of that, but I do like Juniper Berries. I think she's a very speedy filly, and hopefully this will just get her that a little bit closer to Relief Rally. But there are plenty of good angles around this race. It's very competitive, and looking forward to it big time. Looking forward to all of Newbury, actually. A great load of racing. Newmarket as well has got great field sizes too. But there's a small matter of the summer highlight for Ross. The summer plate action.
You know me too well, Jess. Yeah, the nap was a winning nap this time last year. Frankie de Burley. I mean, his virtually his entire season is built around this race. He won it last year off just a pound lower. It was a little bit closer than I ideal on the occasion. He just got up on the line, but he's now £7 better off with the runner up. His run last time was very eye catching. He was given plenty to do. He wasn't given a hard time. He ran on into third over course and distance. The Bowen Yard traditionally target this meeting and this race. It's a very straightforward sort of reasoning. Frankie de Burley has been aimed at this race. He's only a pound higher. He's better off at the weights with some protagonists, and I think he'll win again. The Summer Plate 3:15 from Market Raisin. I'm sticking with the jumps, where I'm perhaps not quite as bonkers as you called me last week. And the next best comes in the 240 from Market Raisin, and it's Earth Company, who's moved from Philip Hobson Johnson White to Mr. Neville. He's a really shrewd trainer. I'm always interested to see what he can do with horses. He goes back over hurdles, having been run over fences, fell last time. He's by a German horse called Arcadio, and they're all just a little bit quirky. He's just too keen. He fell last time. Hood goes on, tongue tie goes on, back over hurdles off a mark of 124, which is his last winning mark back in December 21, I think it was. But he was second to Captain Matan off a mark of 125 over fences. Captain Matan's a really smart horse in small fields. When he gets his own way, he's probably better than his actual mark. That was a decent run. He served it up to him. I think he's got a big engine. Change a yard into a smaller yard. Maybe they just found the key to this, and the Hood goes on. Tongue tie goes on. Gavin Sheehan's riding really well. He should be a big enough price, around about 10 to 1 or bigger, I would expect. So Earth Company is a sort of slightly wild next best selection.
Yeah, gosh, it feels like deja vu, jumps life, jumps mentality. And I see that F and I think of TC and I'm like, oh, letter to his name. Have you not learned anything? Learned nothing. You're still bonkers. You're not learning anything, Ross. Anyway, he'll stick to what he knows best. We'll wait for that next season when it comes around. But Earth Company and Frankie de Burley for the jumps fans at Market Racing this weekend. Tom, what do you like in and around on Saturday? Plenty of flat action.
Yeah, we'll just come to the Napan Express in 1 second, but Gavin Sheehan and Patrick Neville actually had a runner at Saratoga on Thursday. So it's a quick comeback for both. I presume the trainer was out there as well, but for Gavin as well to ride on Saturday. Their runner in that Grade 1 at Saratoga finished second last, so nowhere close, but the race was won by Belfast Banter. What a horse he was, and he absolutely hacked up back on Wednesday. The nap this week, I'm going to stick to the flat action. We don't need Summer Plate at this point in the season, do we? It's the middle of the flat season. Give us just flat racing. Going to go to the 4:45 at Newbury. And the nap is going to be Maman June. Now, there's some notable trainers represented in this fillies novice race. We're talking Jonathan Thady Gosden, Sir Michael Stout, Andrew Baldwin, William Haggas, Roger Varian. And hopefully that will mean that Maman June doesn't go off a ridiculously short price. Now, saying that, she's rated 100 and she's already finished 4th in the Oaks. So she's not going to be missed in the market. Hopefully we're looking at odds against, and if so, I think she's a fair bet. She's got reasonable form to her name. First time up, I was impressed with her second place finish, given that Richard Hannon's horses improved for their first run. Then she finished 4th in the Oaks, which is obviously the form-bearing run in the race by far. It's the best piece of form by a country mile. Last time out, she finished 17 of 17 at Royal Ascot. You have to put a line through that and hope that she improves, but I think she's by far the best horse, and this is a big drop down in grade. And then the next best is in the 4:15 at Newmarket, a horse called Cloudbreaker. Now, course specialists on the July course at Newmarket are critical to my punting ways at the track. And I'm going to be backing Cloudbreaker to record her second career success. Her first one came here in a novice event last year. She was tight for room for much of that race, but was angled out and really tackled the uphill finish nicely. I think this track suits the way that she races. And albeit she hasn't won in 4 subsequent starts this year, her form's actually really strong. On her penultimate outing, she finished 4th in a listed race at Newbury. The winner of that was Warm Heart. The second was Blue Stocking. We've already touched on both of those. They're running in the Irish Oaks. And the third has won a listed race and been placed in a group race since. That form looks rock solid. And then last time out, she made up huge amounts of ground in the King George V Stakes at Royal Ascot. Yes, the race was run to suit. They went super hard up front, and the horses that were ridden patiently out the back had the bias, really. They were supposed to come through, and she did. But the race, she ran a screamer. It actually looked like she was going to win with a furlong to go before just flattening out. She's got a mark of 93. I think she's miles better than that. And hopefully, again, she'll be a decent price in the 4:15 at Newmarket.
Okay. Big comprehensive case made for Cloudbreaker. I'm going to be taking you on, I'm afraid, but we'll get to that. My nap, I'm going to the Curragh, and the Curragh specialist, that is Art Power, returns to the track that he won at back earlier on in the season when he won the Greenland Stakes. And absolutely bolted up. For whatever reason, he just loves it there. That was over 6 furlongs. He's actually coming back to 5, but he can win over 5, no problem. He's got the speed. I just think he seems to outclass his rivals when he's there. And he's comes into the Group 2 off level weights, which is pretty convenient. Doesn't get a penalty for that Group 2 win. And I thought he ran really well, actually, behind Shaquille. He sort of led him into the race a little bit, but kept up the momentum. It was only last week, but he's obviously come back pretty well. We know these sprinters are just pretty bomb-proof. There is Ladies Church in the race, would be my kind of bigger concern, but I just think Art Power, he's a hardy type. Tim Easterby's yard are in really good form. They've really just started to roll out the winners a little bit. He's definitely a yard to follow at the moment. So liking Art Power in the Sapphire Stakes of 3:10 at the Curragh. And then the 4:15 at Newbury, just another layer, at Newmarket, another layer to another case for another filly in this race. Already made Cloudbreaker a selection from TC, but there have been a couple of horses that I've seen in person this year, been lucky enough to be at the races presenting whatever, and have been really taken by, and Truthful is one of them. She's a daughter of See the Stars. She's from a lovely family that the Sunderland Holding Group, in the familiar See the Stars colours, and they've got beautiful pedigrees, and they actually sold this horse to Highclere. William Haggas has trained the family anyway, and they know them very well. They've taken their time with her. Obviously, she won at Salisbury when I was there, and I just thought she has such a lovely attitude. And then she beat Shagpile at Haydock, a filly that is obviously kept in high regard, the half sister to Pile Driver. Now, this is a completely different kettle of fish coming out of novice company into a listed race against her elders as well, but she gets a good weight break because of that, of 8 stone 9. Good opportunity for Kieran Fallon. As I said, very different kettle of fish here against her elders, but I think she's pretty classy. Official rating of 90, and she'll have to raise her game again, but I'm looking forward to seeing her doing so. I'm not entirely sure what price she will be, but she'll probably be quite a nice price considering she's got to beat some horses with some good form in these kind of listed races, but I think she's up for it. And William Haggas knows how to place his horses, so got confidence in that. So that's Truthful in the Aphrodite Stakes at Newmarket, and that brings us to the end of another podcast. Thank you to TC and to Ross. Let's hope that we found more winners, and enjoy the summer plate. Ross, Bonkers Miller, and TC, enjoy the racing this weekend. So much flat action, and obviously that jump action as well for everyone to get their teeth into. Enjoy all the rest of the sport action. We've got the Open, we've got the Ashes. It's a brilliant time to be a sports fan at present. Make sure new SBK users get £30 in free bets when they sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe, whatever podcast channel you listen to. We'll be back next week.